According to the United States Census Bureau, approximately 2% of the U.S. population has earned a doctorate. I am proud to be part of that statistic. Here's another fact that I want to share with you. According to the Center for Disease Control, 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 13 boys will be sexually abused by the time they reach the age of 18. I am also part of that statistic, having been sexually abused between the ages of 7 and 10 years old by an adult family member. There is a huge disconnect between being proud of being part of one statistic and carrying shame for being part of another. I'd like to pose a question to you. Do you know anyone in your family, your friends, or your circle of acquaintances who was abused as a child? Some of you are probably saying, no, I don't know anyone who suffered through such unspeakable trauma. I'd like for you to consider that perhaps you do know someone who suffered through unspeakable trauma as a child, but they have chosen not to disclose because of the stigma that is associated with being a survivor of sexual assault at any age. It is also possible that they are managing the internal emotional cycle of guilt, shame, pain, trauma, anxiety, distress, fear, and a range of other emotions that has kept them silent. Throughout my journey, I have decided that healing out loud is more cathartic than healing in silence. To aid in my journey, I coined an acronym, AARP. No, not this AARP. I am not quite old enough to be part of this AARP, if you believe that. Okay, full disclosure. I am a card-carrying member of this AARP. They have the most amazing travel discounts. The AARP that I'm speaking of is A for acknowledge, A for acceptance, R for releasing, and P for post-traumatic growth. Let's dig a little bit deeper. A for acknowledge, acknowledging that I had no control over the adult who hurt me. Acknowledging that the normalization of the perpetrator remaining in my household after my disclosure was dysfunctional.
That's right.
Acknowledging that in the Black community, oftentimes speaking about sexual abuse is taboo. Acknowledging that although sexual abuse was not spoken about in my home, it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. Acknowledging that childhood sexual abuse has been ingrained in the fabric of society for centuries. And acknowledging that although I cannot change what happened to me as a child, I can use my voice to educate others and to try to prevent the cycle of generational abuse from continuing. Acceptance. Accepting that what happened to me was not my fault. Accepting in my mid-40s that in spite of what happened to me between the ages of 7 and 10, that I am a good person. Accepting the charge to use my gifts and talents to work with vulnerable populations in the community, for which I did for 38 years. Accepting that I am amazing. I am strong, I am smart, I am confident, and that I am enough. Releasing the anger and resentment that I held towards the adults who did not protect me. releasing the heavy yet invisible baggage that I carried on my back for years, releasing the voices in my head that questioned if I contributed to the behavior of my abuser as a child, releasing the fear that if people really knew about my background, that I would no longer be seen in a positive light. Post-traumatic growth. My post-traumatic growth journey continues. My post-traumatic growth includes speaking out loud about my trauma and encouraging other women to release their own pain and start their journey of healing. My post-traumatic growth includes practicing self-care, focusing on the positive aspects of my life, of which there are many. My post-traumatic growth includes paying attention to my own mental health, staying open to new possibilities, and making sure that I take care of myself daily. This little girl thought that she was ugly. This little girl was lonely. This little girl did not feel like she was worthy. This little girl blamed herself for the things that were happening to her as a child. But what this little girl also had was the resolve to get better, to heal, to share her story. This little girl became this woman. This little girl, along with her husband of 25 years, built her own family. This little girl became a public speaker, a motivational speaker, and served the communities for 38 years. This little girl became a published author and deciding to heal out loud and sharing her story and her journey with others who may have been experiencing the same thing. This little girl became an athlete. Okay, she became an athlete in her own mind. She enjoys exercising, all things Peloton, lifting weights, cycling, running, meditation, and sprinkling in a little bit of yoga. This little girl received her doctorate and became part of a good statistic when she earned her degree. In healing out loud, I have silenced the voices in my head that told me that I should be ashamed and that I should be silent. Healing is intentional. Growth is intentional. Healing out loud is bold. Healing out loud is what I have decided is best for me. By healing out loud, I can also encourage others to tell their story and to not be ashamed of what happened to them, especially those things that they could not control. Thank you for being part of my journey of healing out loud.